Hey everyone, it's Kellen Brower from RacerX back again with another race examination video from Ironman. And let's just jump right into this Chase Sexton cutting the tree moment in 450 Moto 1 because a lot of people hit me up asking questions and were confused. Should he have gotten a penalty? Should he not? Did the officials look at it? Yada, yada, yada. So let's break this down from a time perspective and the rules that apply. First off, we're going to look at a slow-mo of it though and see just how close it was. I mean, Chase almost got into this tree, definitely pretty close to actually hitting it, comes to nearly a stop and then re-enters the racetrack, but people were asking what applies. So 2.9b is the rule here. A rider leaving the course may continue to race by properly re-entering the course at the closest point to where the rider left the course without gaining an advantage. If a rider leaves the course for any reason, the rider must immediately slow down to a safe speed as to not endanger life or limb of riders, crew members, officials, or the public. It will be the responsibility of the race director or his designee to determine whether a penalty is applicable to this situation. So I wanted to break it down from a time perspective to see, did Sexton actually gain time? So over this little rise, he's 1.183 seconds down. He goes off the track and almost hits the tree and then rejoins, kind of on the gas a little bit. So you could say, oh, is it on safe track range or whatever? Comes down this hill. He said he let off the gas all the way down this hill. And then as we go over this next little rise, you see it's now 1.299 or a time loss of 0.116. So he didn't actually gain time. And then apparently Starr did ask about it, but the race officials reviewed it and saw that there was no penalty. However, even if you look in the results and you add Chase Sexton another 30-second penalty for being a bad guy, he's still going to finish second because that's how far ahead of they finished of Aaron Plessinger. So I think this is a null and void situation. Yes, he went off the track, but what are you going to do? All right, let's move on to this 250 Moto 2 start, and I wanted to break this down just because I'm highlighting going to the line of the first moto. Sexton, fastest qualifier, lines up right there. Eli Tomac lines up to the outside of him. Tomac gets a better start, kind of shuts him off. So when they come to the gate the second time, Tomac lines up there first because he won the first moto. Sexton gets to pick his own gate. He lines up outside. And he actually said that he watched, and this gate got 3 of the 4 hole shots all day long. So he felt like he was going to the right gate for what he was trying to do, which is obviously get a hole shot, get out front. He gets off the gate well, having nobody to his outside makes it easier to control. He outjumps Marshall Welton to his inside, and then it gets a little close here with him and Eli Tomac. I mean, almost touching wheels together, but Sexton leaves the braking on late, gets to the corner first, goes around the outside, almost gets repassed basically by Roczen going into the second corner. Roczen would actually pass him on the first lap, but there's a little bit of gamesmanship onto how Sexton used the outside line to his advantage off the start. Now back to 450 Moto number 1, and you want to talk about gamesmanship. Here's Sexton using an outside to in line through the mechanics area. Of course, Tomac made a mistake, but interestingly, Tomac said that he started picking up on Sexton doing that. So when he's going beast mode here late in 450 Moto 1, look at him. Outside to the mechanics area, Sexton tries to block the inside line, but Tomac just says, I found a rut I like. I'm going to go to the outside, and takes over the race lead again. Now, what's peculiar about this is that Sexton had been going to the outside off of this the entire time, but now because Tomac is to the inside of him off of this jump, he's going to land and actually hook pretty hard right here to defend the inside because he thinks maybe Tomac is still taking that line. But Tomac said that the entire time he was reading Sexton's lines and trying to figure out where he was gaining an advantage, and this is one of those spots where he was gaining the advantage. So Tomac does a great job of just reading the situation well, going right around the outside, making the pass for the lead, and eventually the pass for the win. On to 450 Moto number 2, though, and when Tomac actually gets up to Sexton to try to catch and pass him for the lead and win again, has this huge mistake at the back. Tomac told me after the race it was really close. He thought for sure he was going to go down. But what's interesting about this is the second time, obviously, on the day that Tomac got off-centered on a rut. He enters the rut a little bit too far outside, crosses over a couple ruts at the top, almost comes to a complete stop. And if we go back to this pass between him and Sexton in the first moto, again, same thing, a little bit too deep, gets high-centered on the rut. That's because these ruts here at Ironman are so long and so tricky to get right, but these two put on quite a show, split the moto wins, and now we have a 1-point gap going into the final round. I want to remind everybody that this video is presented by onX Off-Road. Know where to go with the #1 off-road GPS app, access 500,000 plus miles of trails and roads, open dates, and public lands. Download the onX Off-Road app today. On to the 250 class, and I want to talk about the, of course, penalty that Justin Cooper and Hunter Lawrence both received. It was a 2-point penalty for jumping on the red and white wheels on the ground flag here. Joe Shimoda behind them does not do it. So let's talk about this a little bit. As they come through this corner, there's obviously the red and white flags waving on the inside. The red and white light is blinking right there. And as we come further through the corner, as these guys go to the outside, there is another red and white light blinking on the outside. So obviously done and dusted, pretty easy penalty here, but I would like to see in the future maybe a flagger be on the outside of the track because that's where the track is going for these guys in terms of racing lines, because, you know, they're not going to look far to the right side and see those flags on the ground, you know, wheels on the ground flags on the inside. So you want to have someone, I think, on the outside there in the future to be able to show these guys, yeah, there is a flag there. Shimoda does recognize it and roll it, though, so good on him. But, of course, both these guys jump and get those 2-point penalties. And, hey, look, Michael Antonovich. All right, on to a little bit later in 250 Moto number 1. Joe Shimoda is going to go down here on the inside, and I'm highlighting this because I want to talk about, again, these long, deep ruts at Ironman and how difficult it is if you get a little off-centered in them. So Shimoda goes down, and then McAdoo, a little bit before that, just had pretty much the exact same situation. Like, you get off balance, you're leaning too far to one side or the other, and these ruts are so long, it's hard to keep it upright, so both of them went down. All right, let's talk about Haiden Deegan's wild crash late in 250 Moto number 1 that ended his first moto as a pro. Connor Schmood here with the nice footage, and this is just an absolute greasy crash by Deegan as he's trying to hop over this wall. Some of the amateur guys were trying this on Friday. Hymus and Ferry both were doing it. Ferry almost went down as well if you watched our MIP save of the day. But I wanted to actually talk about Jet Lawrence's technique through here because I think this is actually the right way to approach this wall. I love the way that Jet hits this wall jump here because you can see he's kind of pre-hopping into it, gets a little bit of lift so he gets over this gap right here. But you're going to see he's going to put his front tire just like right on the very top of it right there because that's keeping him obviously from going over the bars. And I think something like that, it's one of those things that gets lost in the details, and that is just how good Jet Lawrence is as a technical rider as well. And of course, he would go on to win the day going 1-3 and carries a pretty big advantage into trying to clinch his second 250 National Championship this weekend at Fox Raceway.